You're watching Black the Vote Digital Housing Forum. My name is Katrina Holland, Executive Director of Community Alliance of Tenants.
And I'm Hannah Holloway, Policy Staff with the Urban League of Portland.
So as you know, there is a lot wrapped up in this November's election. Our values as Oregonians are on the ballot. The housing crisis continues to crumble our communities. And so a group of us Black-led organizations came together to have some real talk with candidates and with people in the know about some of the issues on the ballot. Issues like Black houselessness, issues like access to home ownership, renters, luxury units that are vacant while homeless people are sleeping on the streets. And so we really wanted a chance to dive in and ask some really tough questions. We hope that you'll learn a lot.
Also, a quick note, we as nonprofits take our C3 statuses very seriously. In that effort, we made every attempt to get all candidates to this forum. We made repeated phone calls, emails, moved our schedules and our formatting around in an effort to get everyone here. So the candidates that you will hear from are the candidates who were able to make time for this Black Housing Forum.
We hope that you enjoy. Feel free to share it, send it to your friends, send it to your family, ask tough questions, and make sure that you get out your vote on November 6th.
This is Black the Vote Digital Housing Forum, and I'm here with Christel Allen to talk about Measure 106. Christel, do you want to introduce yourself and your involvement with the 106 campaign?
Sure. My name is Christel Allen. I work with NARAL Pro-Choice Oregon. I am the political director, and NARAL Pro-Choice Oregon is on the executive committee of the No Cuts to Care campaign, which is the coalition to defeat Measure 106.
And what would Measure 106 do?
So Measure 106 is a measure that would actually target low-income and working Oregonians who receive their health care through the state. And what it would actually do is restrict or prohibit any funding towards abortion. And while there's been lots of information out there, make no mistake, this is actually a backdoor ban on abortion for those Oregonians who are on the Oregon Health Plan or receive their health care through the state, people like teachers and public nurses and firefighters.
And who receives health care through the Oregon Health Plan?
So through the Oregon Health Plan, Oregonians, our neighbors, people across the state receive their health care. If you are on the Oregon Health Plan, and I myself have been on the Oregon Health Plan, you are typically, meeting income standards that happen to show that you may need a little bit more help with receiving coverage for making sure that we're all covered here in Oregon. And Oregon's actually a leader in making sure that almost all Oregonians are covered in this state.
Okay, and say Measure 106 passes and I am on the Oregon Health Plan. If I choose that an abortion is the best option for me, given that 106 passes, how will I then access abortion? What resources are available to me?
So this is when this really does become a backdoor ban. What would happen if anyone were on the Oregon Health Plan and 106 were to pass? What we know is that more than half of Oregonians cannot receive an unexpected bill of $500 or more without having to go into debt themselves or to sell some of their belongings. And so for many families, many women, and people across the state, this absolutely creates a barrier in their lives that many will not be able to figure out a plan B. And so this ballot measure is incredibly dangerous. It would effectively cut off more than 350,000 Oregonians from having the access that the rest of us are able to receive.
And under publicly funded health plans, are there examples of other services or procedures that are explicitly unfunded, perhaps vasectomies or other, can you give examples, if there are examples of other procedures?
So this is why this is unprecedented and would actually create a a very slippery slope. This would be the first time we are explicitly calling out a set of services and effectively putting a ban for people who can't afford it. And so this is something where we have not seen it in the state. I don't think that fits with Oregon values, and we're working really hard to make sure that we're not creating this precedent for future healthcare needs. This is something that's never been targeted, and it definitely should not be targeted towards those who can least afford to receive those services otherwise.
And are there examples from other states that have maybe banned certain public funds for healthcare services? And if so, what has the impact in those states been?
So, Oregon is actually a leader in actually being the only state in the country that has currently 0 restrictions on abortion care. And we are one of 17 states that allows our state health plan, Medicaid, to be used towards the full range of reproductive health services. That's really important to make sure that all families have the ability to choose when and how and if they want to be a parent. And so what's really important here to know is other states have passed serious restrictions in the last few years, including Texas. And what we found is that more than 250,000 women were basically turned away from receiving the abortions that they had chosen to receive coverage for. And when women aren't able to access the healthcare services and make the medical decisions that they have chosen for themselves, we see really, really terrible outcomes when it comes to their health and well-being, and we don't want to bring that to Oregon.
And I would imagine an impact on future, public service funding levels as well. Is there a financial impact of more pregnancies being carried to term?
We do see significant life decisions being made by politicians and not by the people who should be making those decisions, which are the person choosing to have an abortion and their medical providers, their faith, and their families. And that's something we don't want to see here in Oregon. And time again, when these types of restrictions have passed in other states, we see and hear about really awful decisions being made and people that are put into really terrible circumstances. That's not to say that we can make a jump in conclusion that this will definitely in every situation lead to additional services being needed, but that does happen.
Okay. And who, I guess in both camps, who is organizing behind Measure 106 and who is organizing against Measure 106?
So the group that has been primarily driving the effort to put 106 on the ballot and other forms of it in the last 4 years is a group called Oregon Life United, led by a man named Jeff Jimerson, who is, he has tried 3 times and failed in the last 8 years to do this. This time, his group was successful. I think, when a group has one sole purpose and a network of very small but very extreme group of motivated individuals. Oregon is not a state where this is something that is not that hard to qualify for the ballot. And so while they were successful this time, I definitely believe that our coalition that's working to defeat this, along with millions of Oregonians, are going to soundly defeat this. We have more than 100 coalition partners at the table. Groups like the Urban League is a member of our coalition. Groups like Apano, groups like NAIA, the Native American Resource Center, and groups that you would primarily think would be running this, groups like ACLU, Planned Parenthood, and NARAL, Pro-Choice Oregon. One thing that was really important when we were building this coalition was that it needs to represent the communities that were most impacted should this ballot measure go into effect. And so The work of the reproductive equity movement here in Oregon has been taking big strides towards being representative. We have a long way to go, but it is important to achieve that dream of reproductive equity where no matter what community you're in, people have access to the same, services, the same education, and that we are really challenging myths that exist about what types of services women of child bearing years need in the state.
Yeah, and along those lines, is there any one message that you think voters, and in particular Black voters, should hear or understand about Measure 106 when they're making up their minds?
Looking at the ballot this year, it is incredibly hostile towards communities of color. When you look at Measure 106, when you look at Measure 105, these are ballot measures that explicitly target communities of color. There are a lot of reasons why this exists, but we see that the Oregon Health Plan is tremendously important within communities of colors, and that is for a lot of reasons that our state needs to grapple with and work towards. Healthcare outcomes are so important, and when we are thinking about what's best for our communities, we need to know that no matter however you feel about abortion, women deserve to be respected, and women's decisions when it comes to how they want to be a parent, if they want to be a parent, are respected. And so I think that's our message to all communities, to really recognize the values that our coalition is hoping to be across, that we should not be creating more inequity in the state, and we should be saying no to Measure 106.
Yeah, well, thank you for being here, Christel.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Hannah.
Yeah.